Welcome to the Popish Plot. I'm Jessica. It's another episode of the Summer Book Club, and today's chapter is on doctors. Now, Summer Book Club is where a group of us are reading the Handbook for Catholic Moms. Down below in the description, I'll have links to other people who each did an episode on this chapter. Right now, we are in chapter 16, which she titles Doctor's Orders, and the majority of the chapter is a listing of various tests and screening that is suggested for women to get, what age they should get them at, and how often they should get it. So, by and large, it's the information that you could copy and paste off any government health site, or look in your doctor's office, or get from your insurance. I know just literally today I went and looked at my mail, and along with the junk credit card offers and, sales paper for get this local business service or that one, there was one for my insurance letting me know about various medical things that I might want to get and how often I should get it. Now, one of these, it made sense that they would let me know about this because as my health insurance, I don't get my vision exam under their insurance. It gets done under my vision insurance, and they only know about if I get an eye test, if there's complications, and it falls under their preview versus vision insurance. But the majority of them were things like, remember to get an annual physical, where I looked at it and went, all right, there's a code for physicals that the doctors put in to get the money from the insurance. Shouldn't you know when I get an annual physical? And that I don't need one because I just got one 7 months ago. So even under your remember to get one once a year, you don't need to remind me about this now. Also, ironically, I just went to the doctor's on Monday, which of course they sent this out, days ago. They wouldn't have had the information at the point in which they sent this out. However, I did one of the, few tests that they suggested on there, as my doctor was, checking something in blood work based on a medical issue. And even she went and said, all right, if this comes back normal, we don't need to check this besides, maybe once a year at your physical unless there's some change. So the person, there who actually looks at my medical things had already taken care of this issue. So the majority of this chapter is pretty useless if you can Google things and or have a doctor. It does point out that if for some reason you don't have insurance, various things you can get that might help, like you might qualify for various state programs. This was done before all the requirements about insurance was changed, and there was, less information about the different government programs you might be able to use because you had to have insurance. But still, majority of this chapter, if you see a doctor regularly, or if you have an insurance that for some reason wants to make sure you're getting your health looked into, but doesn't bother checking their own records to see when you got your health looked into, you don't need this chapter. I have heard one interesting thing that it pointed out in this book about how to remember to do these things, of tying them with an event. So, yeah, you don't want to get your physical every year on your birthday or near it. However, maybe you want to go and plan your physical so it's near the birthday of your mother or some other relative. Make sure you get your screening for cancers at the anniversary of some relative who passed away. So you remember, this is important and I need to do this because you remember that date. So the one good thing it has in that section is remember to get this done, possibly tie it in with some thing that will remind you about this. Then after the section in which it basically copies and pastes information that you can get on government health websites, including information that I was talking to friends who aren't even religious, and they agreed that given that the scope of this book is for Catholic moms, it seems highly unlikely that you need to get tested for STDs anywhere near as often as they suggest. Yes, that is the government guideline. However, if you're in a relationship where there's only two of you, sure, you might need to get tested right at the beginning. Especially, they pointed out the fact that you can get HIV if you got a blood transfusion before they started testing for that and things like that, where it's, completely innocent, accidental ways that you could get this, so you should check and make sure that you don't have it. But besides that, you don't need to be tested every year for these things if there is no reason that you would have gotten these diseases. But past that, it does get into something important. And that is the issue of, especially women have, with finding doctors that follow, or if they don't follow, at least are accepting of your particular beliefs and morals. Especially in the case of OBGYNs, which reminds me of yesterday's episode, which I'll have a link here, in which Mike talked about Humanae Vitae, because I had not read it yet. So, because it was a quick edit, he left his copy here. So I have now read it. And as I told him why I was reading it, why he was going and doing the episode, I've also already read the Vatican II document that it mentions in here. So I'm once again ahead of him on reading things from the Pope. And this is something that I somewhat understand as being an issue that she should talk about. I know that in the description where I have links to other people's stuff, a few people were talking about perhaps doing a story of their NFP story for this chapter, because again, majority of it is remember to get screened for this cancer when you hit this age, and remember to get screened for this when you hit this age, and if you have any of these factors, get this test done, and so forth. That's really boring. It's not all interesting for YouTube. So I can talk about, OBGYNs and how much they were or were not for my beliefs. Now, with my first daughter, I picked a doctor based on the fact that my mother-in-law, who currently is a nurse practitioner, but at the time I believe was just a nurse, went and said, hey, this practice is good. I know these doctors. They're good at their job, which is a really good reason to pick a doctor. If people in the field, outside of situations where they should be nice, say, these are the people you want, they're usually good. And they were excellent in their care for me and my daughter while she was being born. However, the person at the practice who I saw for my postnatal checkup clearly did not even understand what NFP was. Like, it wasn't just, oh, that will never work. It was just like blank face of, oh, huh? However, we had moved while I was pregnant. So that was the last time I was going to see that doctor, simply because I'm not driving an hour for a doctor. Especially a doctor that's not like some great specialist or anything. I mean, yes, their care was excellent, but not, I'm driving an hour whenever I have a doctor's appointment excellent. Now, for my youngest daughter, we had a doctor who actually worked inside the Catholic hospital near us. And my first child had to be an emergency C-section. It wasn't one of those cases where it's like, I want a C-section so I can plan when she's born, or anything like that. It was, there is important medical issues that if we do not remove her right away, there is a possibility that she will not survive. So I had an emergency C-section with her. After having my younger daughter, which luckily was able to be a VBAC, it was something that we were concerned about simply because when I was younger, you could see it more, but if you look closely, there's like veins that you can see near my eyes that most people, you can't see them on, simply because I was an emergency C-section due to the fact that I did not literally fit in the birthing canal because my mom is a very petite woman with petite bone structure. And you've seen Nate if you've watched any episodes that are not just me. He is a tall man. My children were all multiple pounds bigger than I was when I was born. So that was something that my doctor was nice and made sure to always, do everything possible to check to see how big they were growing, at what rate, making sure that their growth was a normal growth rate given how big he was and how big I am versus any medical complications that may cause the child to be bigger. And luckily, it was a relatively uncomplicated birth. However, in my checkup for him, I'm like, I know when you have a C-section, there's issues, there's scar tissue, there's the fact that there's going to be, areas that grow and stretch when you are pregnant, that scar tissue, again, has issues with. It was a surgery and so forth. So I'm like, for a medical answer, is it safe for me to have more children? And again, this is someone who I'd been working with for months, so it wasn't like just a off-the-comic thing. He knew my personality at least somewhat. So his response was, I'm an OB-GYN. I get paid when people have babies. I'm not going to tell you not to have any more babies. Which I, of course, got the humor of, along with alleviating my concerns about, actual medical things. And it kind of highlights a fun-loving, yet completely in line with Catholic teaching on the subject statement. So, although there were other things which caused it to be that I currently only have 2 children, that is my fun story relating to the issue of NFP that isn't boring and full of a lot of complicated terms and other stuff that would not be interesting to a general audience or a little too personal. So anyway, go down below in the description. There'll be links to other people's thought on this topic, which again is generally about doctors, but about the first half of it is pretty much boring, cut and dry. Usually go and remember to get an annual physical stuff. Go ahead, hit the subscribe button, ring the bell next to it so you're notified when our next episode comes out. And remember, until next time, to live your faith, love your faith, and share that love. Hello, and welcome to the Popish plot. There's a train going on in the background. It's loud and making loud train noises. Choo-choo train!
Keep batting! Keep batting!
Go to bed, sweetie.